Hi everyone, welcome back to the garden. Today's video is about one of the most asked about plants here in the garden, but despite the level of interest, it's actually a Trachycarpus fortunei, the Chinese windmill palm, one of the most common and hardiest palms available here in the UK. But this one in particular, it looks completely different. It's a Trachycarpus with a twist, because it's got a stripped trunk. Stripping the trunk in a palm, it gives them a completely different look. They've almost got a tropical desert island coconut palm type vibe. And personally, I think whilst it's not for every single palm, I can see why some people don't like it. I think it gives one or two plants a very special look here in the garden. So I'll actually be doing it to another palm on this video for you today. I want to go through how I do it to a palm and answer a few questions that you might have about the process. So if you're looking at doing this for one of your own palms, actually buying one with a strip trunk this spring, or maybe you're just curious about the whole process, what it's even about, then this video is for you. But before I show you that very special palm, I thought to show you this one first. This is a natural looking Trachycarpus fortunei. It's got a very sort of hairy trunk covered in this sort of coarse fur. It almost looks like a woolly mammoth with those sort of tusk-like old leaf bases sticking out. And what this does, it actually gives them quite a chunky trunk look. I really like it. Some of them it definitely suits. But for other people, they want something that's cleaner, sharper, maybe more modern. No jokes here, I'm being very careful to stay away from innuendo. But basically, this is what they look like in the natural state. This fur persists for many years, and it can probably take 50 plus years before it really starts sort of peeling away. So I want to show you what you can artificially do and the magic look that it can create. Compare that then to this strip trunk Trachycarpus further down the garden. I did this one myself around 4 or 5 years ago. It was the first one that I'd done, so I'm not claiming to be an expert at this, but I'll go through later on exactly how I do it in this video. But I wanted to show you this one first. I think it looks fantastic. And yes, this trunk will eventually fade to a grey silver colour, but 4 or 5 years on, it still looks yellow and it really gives it an exotic vibe. So here at this sunnier end of the garden where it opens up, I've got more Mediterranean arid style planting, and to me this gives it a completely different edge. It doesn't look like a Trachycarpus at all. It almost looks like something you'd actually find in a desert island. With this one, I decided to do it because the trunk was already quite narrow, quite thin, so it really suited something that would further exaggerate that look. It definitely suited this kind of treatment. But for other palms in the garden, I've left them completely natural. There's only this one and the second one that I'll be doing today. Because personally, I think I do prefer the chunky, hairy trunks. Don't take that out of context. But in a certain case, like this one here, I think it looks fantastic. So let's actually go through the method of doing it with one that I started earlier today. This then is a Trachycarpus that I've been stripping this morning. I had a great time in the sun while Max was running around doing his own thing, and I think that this is going to make a very eye-catching addition to this part of the garden. I don't know if you saw my recent video looking at my plans for this area, but basically there's going to be some Mediterranean style planting and then an area of decking in front of it. So I think a plant that looks as exotic as this will certainly be a great feature and add some instant height to the area. A little bit of history on this palm before I talk about some of the questions you might have. This one is the last big Trachycarpus that I bought from our old house. I don't know if you know our story, but basically we moved here in August 2020. A lot of these plants, this one's in a 130 litre pot, some are in a 160 litre pot, some even bigger. I've been growing them all for a number of years, and then we had one massive move to this house. So most of the big ones are already in the ground. I've got a few really special palms that I'm going to plant later this spring. Don't worry, there'll be videos on those. But this one is the next one to go in. And I was trying to wait to find the right spot for it. And now we've got this area of decking here, or at least a plan for it. I think this will be absolutely perfect. It'll certainly give it that real exotic vibe. So I want to go through just exactly how I strip it. Like I said, I've left a little bit here that I'll strip to show you. Careful. But either way, before I do that, I'll talk about a few questions that you might have about the process and the implications for the plant. So before I strip the rest of that trunk then, I'll go through a few questions with you. First question, that trunk, obviously a palm's going to keep growing. Do you need to keep stripping it every few years? The answer to that is yes. Unfortunately, or fortunately, palms grow pretty quick here in the UK. Some like a Trachycarpus, when they're happy, can grow around a foot of trunk a year. So that does mean that every few years, an area of the trunk or a section of the trunk will still be hairy right at the top. It might look a little bit unusual. So yes, if you want to keep this look going, it is something that you're gonna have to keep doing every few years or so in the future. And I've seen pictures of people up on step ladders doing it down in the south. So it's something that I'll probably have to keep on top of here. But I really think it's worth it for the look. Next question, is this a natural thing that happens in the wild? The answer to that is yes. The fibres around the trunk will actually naturally fall off, but it takes a lot of years to do so, probably 50 plus years. I imagine they get pecked off by birds using it for their nests and all kinds of other things. And in some parts of Asia, the fibre's actually harvested. So obviously over here, there isn't a commercial industry for palm fibres, but either way, I'm just doing it purely for the cosmetic look. But don't worry, I'll be keeping all the fibres. I'll use them somewhere else in the garden. Even as a mulch, I'll still keep them here. They won't be going to waste. Next question then, will this actually hurt the palm tree? The answer to that is no. If you do it carefully with quite a small knife, you're not cutting too deep into it. And palms, they're not like actual trees where if you damage the bark, you can kill the tree. All of the sort of goodness, the water, funnels up inside the trunk for palm, so just by cutting the fibre off the outside, it's purely an aesthetic or cosmetic thing, so you don't need to worry about that. Does stripping a palm trunk affect its cold tolerance? Does it affect its hardiness level? And my answer for this one, it doesn't contain any sort of scientific evidence, but it's a bit of my own experience, a little bit of common sense, and partly what I've read online, which is always a great start for answering questions, isn't it? But personally, I don't think it affects the cold tolerance, or if it does, only very, very slightly. And that's because this fibre, it doesn't really give much protection to the trunk. It's only really the equivalent of putting a couple of layers of fleece around it. And at the end of the day, we're only going to strip it up to just below the leaves at the top. So we're actually going to leave that fibre around the main growing point. So the most tender part of the plant, if you can say that for a tough Trachycarpus, that'll be left intact. I think ultimately, this fibre, it only really wraps around the palm a couple of times, so it doesn't really give it that much. And if you're getting to the kind of temperatures where Trachycarpus might be troubled, where you might be getting into -15s or something like that, chances are you actually protect these palms anyway. But here in the UK, we're very unlikely to see temperatures actually really damage these palms. So I think even if it takes half a degree off, it probably isn't the end of the world, and it's not something I worry about here. Next question then, can you strip the trunks of other Trachycarpus palms like this Waggy here? And the answer is yes, you can. I personally haven't done it, but I've seen some really nice modern looking Trachycarpus Wagnerianus like this one here with the trunks completely stripped. They're definitely very eye-catching, and I think with these stiffer leaves, giving it that really sort of clean look, it was certainly fitting well with a modern style garden or maybe even a Japanese style garden. It would certainly give it an interesting look, but not something I've done myself. And last but not least, am I a fan of those Trachycarpus with stripped trunks you occasionally see in the bigger garden centres with really sort of cartoonish palms, zigzag shape to them? No, I'm not. Personally, I strip it to sort of recreate the natural look, but with a bit more vibrancy. I don't try to carve it or change it into anything it's not. So personally, that's where I draw the line. I've seen the ones in garden centres, they charge a huge premium for them pre-stripped, and they almost cut off the top of the palm, basically on each level, and it creates a very sort of step look to them. I definitely don't like that. I think it looks very artificial, very fake, so it's not for me. Sorry if you like that kind of thing, each to their own, but me, I like the natural ones, and then a couple in the garden with that sort of ring look to the trunk. That's just me. But anyway, enough waffling on, it's time to show you how I strip the trunk. Now with this one, like I said, I've already stripped most of that trunk, I've tidied it up, and I've got up to about the last sort of quarter really. I wanted to save a bit to show you how I do it. Obviously I can't show you the actual starting off process, but it's very much the same as how I'm going to start off now. One thing I would say is, be very careful if you're doing this. Only do it if you're very confident using a knife, you've got a good strong grip. Personally, I've done a lot of crazy things in training with my hands. I've carried 175 kilo stones for 60 meters. I've held a car in each hand on a ramp. I've carried 200 kilo in each hand, but doing this, it really puts your hands through an absolute beating. So you need to be very sure that you're careful with the knife, because with this, there's definitely a very real risk of actually chopping a finger off. You need to be really careful, honestly. And it's all right saying everyone wants a tropical style garden, but you don't want to lose a finger. Because if you lose a thumb or finger, how are you going to press like on your favorite YouTubers' videos? How are you going to hit that subscribe button? Exactly, you need to think about it. But anyway, let's show you how I strip it. And basically what we do, I've kept this one in a pot because it's definitely easier to do this whilst it's in a pot. And I've actually used this knife here, which is possibly slightly unnecessarily dangerous. I think you'd be better off with a Stanley knife really, because it's got a shorter blade. And one thing you need to be absolutely certain is that blade is sharp. You don't want to do this with anything less than a sharp knife, otherwise you're definitely putting unnecessary risk on yourself. So what I'm going to do is basically turn it round so you can see what the leaf bases look like. So that's probably a good example there. As you can probably see, there's a V shape, and this is what we remove first in the palm. So what we're looking for then, and remember this is just my way of doing it, if you're actually thinking of doing this to a palm at home, then definitely check some of the guides out before you actually attempt it. But what I do is basically look for these. This shape here is one of the old leaf bases. You can see there the stalk where the leaf would have grown out of the stem. And what we do is basically chop down this bit here. This fibre cuts really easily, and we're basically just going around this arrow shape. So I'll just move around and show you more. That's what we're doing. What you find is, on the first ones that you chop off, you actually get quite a bit of fibre, quite a big bit. Something like these here. I've got no idea what I'm going to use these for, but I'm sure I can think of something entertaining. But anyway, what we do, we chop down, and we basically create a cutout of this section, and then we actually chop around this base. So if you feel around the base of it, there's a bit of a ridge. It's quite a sort of ridge around the whole stem, and we're just going to cut just above that. Now this bit looks quite brutal, but the reason why I do this bit separately is it needs a lot more pressure to actually cut through it. Certainly a lot more than the fibre does. So what we do is actually just push it straight in. I need to put a good bit of pressure on my knife, so that's one reason why I only do a little section at a time. Don't try to circle the whole trunk because you will end up cutting yourself. So basically, follow it round, something like this, until you've gone all the way around this section. I'm not cutting too deep, but still I am putting a good bit of pressure on. And that then is an old leaf base you've taken off the palm. I'll leave the jagged edge that's left then. I can soon tie them afterwards. And basically what I did this morning was trim these off pretty roughly at first, and then I went through the whole lot and tried to give it a proper clean edge. I think that really adds to the overall appearance. So now we've actually removed that leaf base. What you find is the growth from the trunk, basically they just go at all different angles round it, and the rest of the stem is actually covered up with this fibre. So this is what we need to remove next. So for every leaf base, you then got the rest of the trunk to go round. And this is actually a lot easier because basically this fibre cuts very straightforward. You just basically rip it like that and it comes away. Makes a lot of dust doing it, but it's a lot easier to cut. So essentially what we do with this one is basically a thin papery layer. So not going too deep, you can be a lot more gentle with this one. I just basically go just above that dark line and just trace it round. And as you can see, it comes away pretty cleanly. With this one, it's quite important to not go too deep because you don't want to actually hurt the palm and actually accidentally cut through it. But you can be quite rough with them. They definitely can take it well. So that's that taken off. You can see the rest of the fibre removed. So hopefully you can see there pretty easily the look you can create. So basically I just need to get rid of this section here, which like I said you can do afterwards, and that is another ring on the palm. So I can just take it off like that. So coming around this side, I'll just tie it up to show you. Sun setting now. So basically, yeah, that is pretty much it. That is another ring revealed. So one thing you could probably guess from this now is that it does take quite a bit of time. I think really for doing a trunk this size, so we'll say a 1.5 metre trunk, I'd say it takes between 2 and 3 hours to do, and probably another hour or so just to really finish it off and give it that nice clean look. And what I'm going to do now is basically strip off the rest of this fibre all the way up to the crown. So it's basically just the same thing again. I'll go through one more with you just to show you the process. So again then, we're finding the leaf base. Some of them stick out the top, some might have sort of loose flower stalks in the middle of them, but what you'll find is this V shape, and that connects directly to the trunk. And then, like I said, this is the way that I do it anyway. I basically just trace the edge of that, sort of medium pressure on the knife. All you're going to do is just cut into the fibre behind it. You're not going to hurt the palm with this. Basically just track down all the way down to where the brown meets the top of the stem. And then I'll do the same this side. Sorry if the camera angles aren't great for this. I'm really trying to do it so I don't actually cut myself. That's probably the priority at this stage. So chop right down there, follow the V shape down, and then it's the harder cut, which is the base of this. So we cut the leaf base there. Like I said, this does take a little bit more pressure to do, and basically just go straight round, something like this. And then this should slowly start to come away. And if it doesn't come off cleanly, you can then just apply a little bit more pressure to get rid of those remaining bits. I suppose if you really pay attention, you make a proper clean job of this, the end result can be achieved a lot quicker with a little bit more care. But personally, I like to make sure, just get them all off first and tidy this up afterwards. So this one typically has been a little bit harder, but there it is off. And you can see what I mean about these bits that are left. That just needs tidying up basically, something like that, to really get that white sort of yellow cream look showing. So then I'll spin it round again, just for your benefit. And then all we do is we run the knife blade round, just the point, gentle to medium pressure, something like that. You're basically following the ring below it. And then all this fibre should pretty much come away. Typically, I've done it a little bit too light, so I'm trying to show you how to do it. But that is pretty much it. You can soon see the new yellow colour that comes through and exactly how I do it. Like with everything, I think the real effect is the details. It's about trimming it and making it look as smart as possible. It's about those finishing touches. Like here, there's the edge there just hanging over. If you can trim those back, and it's worth doing actually when you're first trimming it, don't leave it till a few days later, because otherwise it will harden off a bit. That way, the whole thing looks so much smarter. So what I'll do now to finish this off then, is basically just remove the rest of these up to, say, there. Because if you go any higher, you'll end up removing the actual leaves of the palm. You don't need to do that. Even these leaves on this palm that are slightly yellowing, that's mainly because it's been in a pot. They just can't keep as many healthy leaves. Leave those on for as long as possible. So now I'll just go around the rest of them. I'll probably speed this bit up so you don't have to watch the whole thing, but essentially it's just repeating the same process. Cut down either side of the V, apply a firm cut to the base of it, just above the ridge that you feel there, and then go round on a lighter sort of touch and remove the fibre. Rinse and repeat. Every time you do it, you reveal one of these rings. Like I said, it does take some time. So I'll speed this up, starting from now. Doing then is slightly change my tack for the last few ones. I'm holding the actual leaf base away from the main trunk so I can cut it a little bit more gently, and that means I don't get these sort of cuts left in the fibre that's going to remain on the trunk, because otherwise it'll look a little bit weird, a little bit unusual. So I'm just going to do these with a little bit more care. One thing's for sure then, I'm certainly not going to be a hairdresser anytime soon. I certainly wouldn't want me to cut my own hair, but either way, I'm pretty pleased with how this looks. Yes, I need to tidy these edges up a little bit, but I'll just show you around now what it looks like and why I think this is such a striking way of actually presenting these Trachycarpus palms in your garden. The transformation is complete then, from the natural fibre look, something like this one here, to something like this. You can see, as I move into the top, I've stopped shy of the crown, because what I find is if you go too far up, you might actually loosen some of these actual leaf bases up here. You don't want to do that. So I've left maybe a foot or so of fibre on the trunk. But I think that looks pretty fantastic, and it's going to look amazing in its place. A hole that I've already dug, ready for the next video, somewhere over there. Well, when I say somewhere, I mean literally that hole there. Max helped me do that earlier. And on the floor, we've got some massive fibres. I've tried to keep the good bits, like these larger pieces over here, some of the earlier ones. As you can see, it's very unusual stuff. It literally looks like a woolly mammoth hide, something like that. And then I've left the smaller bits over there. So I'll probably use these in the garden. I might find some sort of decorative use for these bits, and then the rest of them might just be a mulch or something. But either way, they won't be going to waste. What I might do actually is leave them down here for the next week or so and see if the birds take any of them, because it would be quite amusing really to know that a bird's nest is made up of a palm from the other side of the world. The strip trunk Trachycarpus then is complete, and I think this is going to look fantastic in that corner, surrounded by the other Mediterranean style palms. It's going to look great as you walk around that corner and see this yellow trunk rising out of the foliage. I'm really looking forward to that. And even as it fades to grey, it's definitely got a very unique look. It looks completely different to all the other Trachycarpus in the garden. And if you have to ask someone who doesn't know the palms, is this something different? Chances are they would say yes. So hopefully you've enjoyed or learned something from this video. Like I said, it's not something for every trunk, and most of mine in the garden will stay with the original fibre on. But I think for the odd one or two, if you really want a feature palm, maybe for the centre of the garden, maybe either side of your doorway, one each side flanking it, anything like that, this is a very creative and unusual way of making a Trachycarpus look even more tropical. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and as always, if you've got any other questions, if there's anything that I haven't addressed in this video, then leave me a comment below. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!